Howdy, SERGEI DRATCHEV here, and it's been about 2 weeks since I had my Nikon D750. So I thought I would give some practical tips here for people that want to jump up from auto settings to semi-automatic settings. Now, before I continue, I'd like to emphasize the fact that this video is called Practical Tips for Beginners. So believe it or not, there's certain people that maybe either they came into some money, or they decided to impress their neighbors, or they decided to all of a sudden become serious about photography and video, their hobby, and they did it for a while before, and so they decided to invest in some serious gear. Because I've been having some comments on my channel after I posted a video about, test pictures with this camera. So if you own more than one FX body and more than one lens, I only have one of each, this video is not for you. If you're like a professional photographer, who has 20 lenses, $1,000 each, you don't need this. Please stop and go watch something else. If you are shooting on a crop sensor and buying an FX full-size sensor camera is not in your nearest 5-year plans, this video is not for you. But if you're like me, if you just picked up, if you can afford a $2,000 US body and a $500 lens, and you want to learn how to jump from full auto to better pictures, this video is for you. So specifically, I'm gonna talk about 7 things I discovered. I'm not going to say what you should do or what you should not do. Jesus. I'll just talk about things I found that work, that allowed me to take better pictures. So first of all, it's autofocus. After reading a lot about this and watching movies on YouTube and doing research, I found that especially for pictures, it's best to go to AFS, single servo mode. And secondly, it's very important to choose a single dot focus, not like whole area, whatever, just single dot. Otherwise, it's easy to miss which point is in focus. So with a single point, you can get accurate focus every time. And to help with that, there's tip number 2 that I learned is to activate the beep. In the custom settings, there's a setting where beep is disabled. So mine is, I switch mine to level 2, volume level 2, and high pitch. You can also choose low pitch, but for me high pitch it sounds better. So each time I have pressed the shutter release button, I hear this beep. And of course I see the sign at the bottom left of the screen, so I know that I'm in focus. So autofocus, singular, single point, beep. Those are 2 things I found help a lot. Now tip number 3 I'm using now is I use this button here. It says AEL, AFL, which is by default, it locks both your focus and exposure. I don't know, I don't do sports photography, I just shoot whatever. So I find that, and I keep exposure at matrix, the default one. So I find that the best one is to use this for auto exposure lock. And it's in your custom settings. You go there and you can change, like one of the great things about this, these expensive cameras is that you can customize pretty much any function, any button. And for me, what works is that I assigned the auto exposure lock to this button. So now when I press it, let's say, which is especially handy since I shoot lots of like equipment, machinery, like inanimate objects, and quite often there's something very bright behind them. And I don't want to play with bracketing or exposure. So what I do, I point the camera away from the sky, let's say into the ground or in a darker spot on the machine, and I push this button and I hold it. So, and then I will see at the bottom left of the screen AEL, so exposure locked, and that's it. So I keep pressing it, and then I just move the camera back to the frame I want to see, right? And then I, half press the shutter release, and now I'm in focus. And then I just look at the screen, of course, and I just play with, I point the camera at different parts of the machine. Let's say if I am shooting this excavator near me, and but that's especially useful when there's a lot of bright sky. Let's say I want to shoot a car, like I see a nice looking car in the grass, but it's a bright sunny day and there's a whole bunch of sky behind it. So I find that this thing really works. I saw a video where the guys were talking about, hey, use this button for focusing, and I tried that. I don't know, I did not like it. My exposure went haywire. So this way, I use the shutter release for focusing, I use this button for exposure. Beautiful. If I don't use it, the camera will just use the default settings, right? They'll just try to expose everything. But with this button, you can achieve a more accurate exposure. I don't know, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. I think exposure is often exposure and focus, right? Those two things make the pictures, can make the pictures much better. Now, tip number 4, I found that I was playing with taking the same picture in full auto, and then I would switch to aperture priority or shutter priority, and I would notice a difference, even though I was using the same shutter speed and apertures in full auto. And I went into settings and I compared, and turns out that full auto uses ADL. What is it? Automatic dynamic lighting. Basically, it's very useful when you have a contrast scene, like again shooting, let's say, a car with the sky behind it, and it's a bright day. If you have this ADL, it helps to bring out the detail in dark areas, so it's a good feature. Why not? By default, it's deactivated in all semi professional modes like PMAS, right? Manual aperture priority, shutter priority, and program. So that's another thing I did. I find that helps me is that I went into settings and I turned this ADL on, and it does work. So I don't know what's shameful about using the technology that's available to you, right? But a lot of videos you'll see on the net, don't use this, don't use that, yeah, you're supposed to use in full manual, shoot in full manual mode. That's total BS, That's why we have technology, so that it can make things easier and better, right? Now, tip number 5 I found, for the same reason as above, is that I want ISO in auto mode. And again, by default, it's disabled in the PMAS modes. And so I went ahead and I activated that, and I chose my minimum shutter speed. It says auto. That one I disabled, and I chose the minimum shutter speed and the ISO settings, basically equal to a focal length of my lens. So my lens is a 50mm, right? So the minimum shutter speed at which you can still hold your camera and shoot without any vibration reduction is 1/50th of a second. And so that's what you should do too, I think. Even though I said I'm not gonna say you should, or basically that's what I did, right? So auto ISO in movies and in picture shooting mode, and the minimum shutter speed equal to my focal length of my lens. And image quarter in size, again, despite what everybody says, like whenever you watch any videos, people say, use a large image, basically shoot raw, if I'm just basically using this camera for my own pleasure, and I mostly share pictures with other people via internet, why would I want large size? Even though I have a 64GB, I have 2 cards, 64GB and 32GB, but still I don't like these huge files. So I shoot JPEG, I shoot fine, and I change between medium and small. If I want to take lots of pictures, I take small. It just takes less time to transfer them to your computer, and they're more manageable, So it basically depends on what you're shooting for, right? If you're shooting to make prints the size of a red square, in Moscow, Russia, then you probably should go RAW in large size. That's not my cup of tea. And the last tip I learned is that it's important to have a good memory card. You know, I read about this, so I decided not to go cheap, and I chose a very fast Alexa Professional 64 gigabyte, and it says here 150 megs per second. I doubt that, but it's SDXC. So something like this is great for movies, and then I find that when I transfer images to my computer, it's like, you know, very fast. I like it. So it also helps with the quality. So if you have a camera like this, you know, you spend the money on the camera, don't go cheap on the memory card. That's what I'm trying to say. And the easiest way to choose to change many settings here is with the help of the I button here on the back, right? See, there's lots of controls here, and so that you can customize it. Yeah, active de-lightening, mine is auto. Assign AEL, AFL button is here, and I use standard metering. Picture control is standard. I didn't play with that yet, but like these 7 things. So AFS, singular point, beep, AE lock for the button here, active ADL, auto ISO, and fine JPEG quality, because that's what I use, right? Small or medium size, but fine quality. Oh, and then yeah, one more thing I forgot is that again, compression for JPEG. So image quality I chose fine, image size doesn't matter, but medium or small. And JPEG compression, there's 2 choices here. By default it says size priority, where it's trying to make all your pictures the same size, which is no good. So there's another quality that many people recommend, and the one I chose is called optimal quality, and that's what I chose. So basically that's a few things that will make that made my pictures better, and I hope they can help you, the beginner, with the Nikon D750. Thanks for watching.